welcome to Let's Talk Politics on AIG Media Pro. The countdown to the general elections in Nigeria continues 2019. Crucial elections where for the first time, youths like never before will participate not just in the election process, but also in trying to get elected into Nigeria's #1 job. Ahmed Buhari is the presidential candidate of Sustainable National Party, SNP. He's talking with us on his ambition to be his party's he's been his party's candidate already to become president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, inspired by Justin Trudeau, Emmanuel Macron, and all the young leaders who've emerged as presidents of their own countries. But Nigeria is in France, neither is Nigeria Canada. So tell me, when you meet a lot of people on the road saying you want to become president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, why do you think you deserve the job?
Okay. I'll answer by saying what I've told everybody that's asked me why you want to become president is I'm too relevant for my generation to hear that I existed without making an impact. And contrary to the views that a lot of people have with regards to whether this has been done because we're inspired by Justin Trudeau or Emmanuel Macron or every other young president across the world, it's not necessarily that. In fact, when we started the campaign on the 1st of October 2016, Emmanuel Macron had not declared that he was going to run for the office of the president in his country. So what is most important here for all of us to identify is that I think Nigeria has just got to a point where all of us are asking for answers to all the pressing or failings that have been thrown at us by the system, by our supposed leaders, and we're saying we want better. So when I made that declaration to run in 2016, which happens to be the first young person that made that declaration to run in this country, it was born out of my desire to see things work better. It was born out of my desire to see us move ourselves from where we are to where we ought to be. And in the course of that, I've come to realize that it's bigger than an ambition. It's a vision. So whatever we would have to do to get Nigeria working is what's paramount on our table right now.
You're a businessman. You've got a majors in geology. You're also in ICT too, entrepreneur. You've tried your hands and been successful in several areas, in the oil and gas also too. But tell me, you've got plans to engage Nigerians in the areas where we've never dared to venture. What do you think about the youths and problems with unemployment, that keeps rising?
Well, you see, the thing about the young people in this country is that we know what we want. We're determined to succeed. We want to succeed. We want to be regarded as some of the best in the world. But the biggest problem is the platform we're supposed to achieve all of this isn't there. So many people who didn't quite grow up in the 80s or can't remember what happened in the 70s or maybe in early 90s are totally disengaged from the belief that Nigeria was once good. I mean, it was better than what it is right now. So they do not believe that anything can work. They do not trust themselves. They can't trust anybody. And so there's this total disengagement from system. And that has brought us to where we are. So when people ask me questions like, what do you want to bring different to the table? I keep telling them, I say, look, the first thing we would have to do now as a people is to create an atmosphere where we can revive our unification. That unity doesn't exist anymore. I remember growing up, we were not too concerned about, we were having a conversation before now, and you told me you went to Command Secondary School. In Command Secondary Schools then, it was a school for everybody, regardless of your faith, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your social status. So you could see ministers' children, governors' children in your class, regardless of every other thing that society has allowed to, create demarcations between us. And at that time, it didn't matter whether anybody was from any place. No parent was telling you not to talk to some other child because he's Christian or because he's Muslim or because his father is poor. It was that society that gave us that unification. And the moment that people are together, then there's prosperity. Now we've allowed ourselves to be divided on all fronts: ethnicity, religion, social status, political party, ideological affiliations, gender, and even social status, and even age brackets. So you now see a group of people who want to do things differently. So no matter who is coming to run this country, regardless of how prepared they are or want to deliver good governance, There are some people in the other side of this country that will do whatever they have to do to tell you you're not working right, you're not doing it right, and they will fight against you. So it's one thing to declare, it's one thing to campaign, it's one thing to be elected, and it's another thing to implement. So that implementation part is even the biggest concern for us now, because it's now a question of trying to work on the mindset of our Nigerian people, especially the young people, to understand that, look, unless a united people, we can have a progressive people. And then when we have that, we can start talking about security, we can start talking about education. And then what is also paramount on our table is to see how we can have a decentralized system.
Before we talk about the Buhari plan, which is your plan, if it's a silver bullet towards...
Don't confuse people. Ahmed Buhari plan.
Ahmed Buhari plan. Tell me, you talked about platform, you talked about ideology. Your party, Sustainable National Party. You were trying to go with the PDP before. What happened? Is it that wasn't your ideology, or you just did not measure up to the game there?
Well, it's okay to say anything you want to say now. But on a serious note, from the beginning when we started this whole movement, I could see very clearly that we're going to get to 2019 and still have just two major political parties. And the reason is because to build these parties costs a lot of money, time, and political understanding. And so I felt, as opposed to us reinventing the wheel, we look at the political space, two major political parties. We don't want one of them, the incumbent. We want to replace the incumbent with a new system. And at that time, the PDP was shaky. And at that time, Uche Secondus, the chairman of the PDP, had just made an announcement saying, "We are so sorry to Nigerians. We want to do something differently. The party is open to welcoming Nigeria. We apologize for 16 years of misrule and misgovernance." For us, we felt that was a platform we could go in, get a lot of young people coming, so that when we're talking on matters, when 2-3 corrupt people say no, the rest of the millions of us say yes. And then we own the platform. But obviously, many young people didn't see it like that. And they were so upset. "Why did you own the PDP?" I'm like, what other party do you want to suggest? Any other one is no one, So we found ourselves in a position at that point in time where a lot of people were not really excited about our joining the PDP. A few months later, the PDP ran its own primaries. Because we left the PDP ran its own primaries. We left the PDP for the Sustainable National Party. The PDP ran its primaries, and a certain candidate emerged, and everybody said, "Yes, we're excited." I'm like, the same people? So, so Nigerians aren't quite ready. Nigerians don't understand the game. And then the biggest problem that happened to the young people that came out was when 2-3 of us declared. I think every other person would have just decided to support one of those 2-3 people that declared. But we started seeing many more young people come out, and that created a distraction. Many young people who believed in it didn't know who to support. And again, because we had all of those things that divide us, we started towing in those lines and those directions to support whoever was presented to us. So these are the problems. These are the reasons why we don't seem to have a solid platform that can drive this to success in just about 60 days to the general election. And what I would say is, if we cannot find young people to come together for this cause, agreeing that there are 3 people in the build-up for 2019 general election. We have the old politicians, we have the fine patriots, where we fall in the new political candidates, and we have the electorate. And in all of this discussion, the electorate matter a lot, because they are the ones that decide at the polls. So we would have to fill the polls and understand what they might want. And our failure to do so has actually been one of the reasons why we are not in the top ranks of people.
Is there a failure, many times people have also said, about the political class, because there is no ideology, they say, whether it's the APC, the PDP, or any of the parties that have come about. Is there a failure in ideology in the SNP?
Well, it's not about just ideology. Of course, the SNP has what it stands for, what it wants to do, how it wants to achieve those things. But then it's important for us to understand that the process that gets political officers into political office is where we need to check. And the only way we can check that is by educating the electorate. I'll explain. Anytime a politician puts his hands in his pocket to pay for a campaign process, the moment he gets into office, the first thing he's going to do is to recoup all of that money at an interest rate that only he can determine. And at a return of investment time, that only he can determine. So when you are thinking that you're collecting something from a politician today, simply because you want him to get into office and do the same thing that he has promised to do, then you're lying to yourself. Because in reality, that politician is already thinking of it as, I have sorted you out already. I have to go pay my godfather's money back. I have to go and return money I borrowed from the bank that has interest on it. I have to also replace the money I picked from my pocket. And because people had actually truly collected money from them, we can't challenge them on accountability, transparency, efficiency, and good governance. And that is where there's a problem. So even if and when some of these people are truly determined to work, the reality on ground is that they have debts to settle at the detriment of the campaign promises that they have made, at the detriment of the manifesto they stand by, at the detriment of the supposed ideology they want to stand with in support of the Nigerian people. And so it's hard to find good governance.
I'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the debt the politician has to pay, which is campaign promises many times. You're still watching Let's Talk Politics on AIG Media Pro. I'll be right back after this. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Let's Talk Politics. I'm Awogo Obo. I am having a discussion with the presidential candidate of the Sustainable National Party, Ahmed Buhari. And we've been having discussions as we run down to the general elections on how he plans to take over Aso Rock. Yeah. So let's talk about the pillars of the Ahmed Buhari plan. What are the pillars?
Like I started earlier before, you told me that you had the plan also as to how this interview would unravel. First of all, we want a united people. We've never been so divided, and it's for the stupid reasons. I regard myself as a detribalized Nigerian, and I remember I was at an interview recently, it was 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to some journalist, and she said, "You regard yourself as a detribalized Nigerian. What do you mean by detribalized Nigerian? Can you speak Yoruba?" And I told her that I've lived in Lagos for 15 years, I can speak Yoruba. She said, "Can you speak Igbo?" I said, I can speak a bit of Igbo. And she said, "And you say you're detribalized." I said, "Do you think that speaking the language is what makes you a detribalized person? Do you know that some people learn languages so that they can actually harm those people that can speak that language?" The most important thing here is, regardless of whether I speak the language or not, the most important thing is when I see you as first as a human being, secondly as a Nigerian. The moment I am seeing you, I'm trying to fix you to a geographic location, to a state, then I have a problem. Then I'm seeing other things apart from the fact that you're a human being and a Nigerian. These are the problems. So when we talk about succeeding as a people, we must remember what happened in the 80s, what happened in the 70s, how we had individuals from different states representing different states as governors and seeing performance. So it wasn't about whether that person was from that region. It was about how competent that person was. So there were KPIs that were used to judge or to assess the performance level of individuals and to know whether you should remain in a state or go to another state or even be removed completely. Now, what we have are people from that state running that state, but to the ground. So it's important for us to now see that, look, when I'm complaining about I don't have anybody from my local government in this current administration, what is the importance in having someone from your local government in this administration? Is it because you want to drive to his house and beg him for money? Is it because you want to send him a text and say, "Uncle, send me some money"? And this is exactly where there's a second problem. So apart from the fact that the politicians are there to recover all of the monies that they spend during the campaign process, the electorate are also there trying to get money from these people without necessarily working for it. So you see politicians who I've met on this course, and they will tell me, "Look, I'm not interested in any new Nigeria that you keep talking about, because even the money that I borrowed to run my campaign, I'm still yet to pay." So now you see them saying, "Look, every morning when I wake up, there are 200 people in front of my house. I have over 1,000 text messages every morning, people asking me for money." Now this is a distraction as well, because in other words, he would have to an extent, satisfy these yearnings of the people. And the only way he can do that, because he's also lazy and incompetent, is to go steal money from the post directly and share.
Tell us about the old and the new Nigeria. Was it yesterday I heard the governor of Zamfara said, Abdulaziz Yari, saying they had a meeting, on the sidelines of the NEC meeting with the president, and he said, prepare for harder times. I'm thinking of when the NEC was inaugurated in 2015, and the idea was that all the states should pay salaries. And as this announcement was going, prepare for harder times, the price of crude oil dipped below $50 a barrel for the first time, which is now lower than.
I'll give you a quick story. Sorry, sir. I'll give you a quick story. When we started this in 2016, one of the first states we visited was Zamfara State. When we visited Zamfara State, we were looking for a hotel to stay with my team. And normally for us, we used to be small hotels and we share rooms because, of course, this is really expensive. And we couldn't find a hotel. Everywhere was fully booked. And they said there was this, a bit expensive one, quite expensive though. And they were saying we could go there and check if we could find a room. When I got to that place, one thing I noticed was there were so many white people in the lobby. And it felt like I was in England. There were so many white people. And they started asking questions. What are all these white people doing in Zamfara? A state where there is Sharia and then they could lose their hands or legs or whatever. And they said they are mining for gold. The entire bedrock of the Zamfara region, drawing through Kebbi and parts of maybe Katsina or thereabout, it's a gold bed. We have gold in commercial quantity that does not get what you call reported to the country as to what mineral resources we have in those areas. And now I'm thinking, if these people are there mining for gold, how much money are we making from that? How deep is this, and how is the government revealing to us what they are making from this? And how come Zamfara isn't one of the wealthiest states in the country? So we have this corruption that has dug deep. We have governors who are not ready to reveal exactly how much money they're making from the natural resources or the mineral resources. And we have a people who do not even have an understanding of what is going on to even ask those questions. So it's a big problem. It's a deep problem. Whatever Yari is saying from his own angle, it's all a joke. Because in reality, you are talking about a government that is talking about saving so much money and collecting so much money from loot and everything, and still talking about not having money. So and I can't see the project that they've worked on.
It's not just the Irish problem. It's the entire 36 states, for example.
I know, but you brought one.
The Transparency Initiative, for example, will say none of those states can finance next year's budget without having to go borrow. What's your economic plan, for example?
You asked for the pillars, and these pillars are important for the economic plan to succeed. We talked about unification. We talked about security. And security can only work if number 5 comes to play, which is data management systems. The reason why we're not having a country that is running successfully is because we don't know how many Nigerians exist. If you ask the Minister of Interior today, how many Nigerians exist, it tells you 160 million, 170 million. If you ask the next person to him, he says 200 million. If you ask an international body, they say by 2025, Nigeria is going to be 250 million. How do you know these things? I haven't been counted. When was the last time you got counted? Has any of your children been counted?
Well, they're extrapolating percentages from the previous years.
And the worst thing that happens to us is most of these figures are coming from the international community. We embrace them, we use them, and so it's like saying to you, you have a home, you have a family. You can tell me very easily how many people exist in your house. And it's based on that you buy the food for the house, you pay the school fees for the house, you prepare for medicals for the house, and so you understand how many people you're dealing with. But now we're running the country. We don't know how many people exist. The borders are open. People come into this country every day with the intention not to return. And when they come in, nobody's asking them, where are you going to? When are you going to be leaving? How long do you intend to be here? What are you going to be doing? And you expect the system to work? It's a jungle. Because at that time, you have people coming from Maradi through Katsina, entering Nigeria, from Chad, coming in, you're hearing Boko Haram, from Benin Republic, the same thing, from Bakassi, the same thing. What I'm saying in essence is, we can't seem to have that collective, that secure place if we don't have an idea of how many Nigerians exist. And I would rather be regarded as number 2619 to access government basic amenities other than say, oh, Ahmed Buhari, oh, which one? Is it Hausa? Oh, is it Muslim? That already gives us some segregation. So it's not working. The third thing we want is a decentralized people, decentralized government. The center is holding too much, and it's failing. What do you mean by the center is holding too much? We're having a government where power has to go through the center. Education has to go through the center. Healthcare has to go through the center. Every single thing goes through the center, and the center is holding too much, it's falling apart. When people talk about decentralization, or when they say we need to, pull Nigeria apart, I think what we need to decentralize are the institutions. When you talk about decentralizing institutions, you're talking about the local government or the state government coming into play. And that is the only time you can say, okay, fine, we have an idea of who is supposed to be in charge of that LEA primary school, who is going to be in charge of that secondary school, and then you know who to hold accountable should anything be falling short. But now we're running a system where even if there's a broken pipe in front of your building here, you are saying it's Buhari. Because somehow we have now molded the system in such a way that we forget that we have councillors, we forget that we have assembly members, rep members, senators, governors. We must, as a matter of urgency, leverage on our comparative economic advantages. Now Nigerians are so divided, and you will say, you cannot just make Nigerians love themselves overnight. Yes, it's true, we're not going to love ourselves. In fact, nobody's going to love anybody. But our responsibility is to help identify those things that you have that I don't have, those things that I have that you don't have. If Bielsa is complaining that they have a polluted soil, there's nothing wrong in taking that huge money to go and invest in Jigawa in agriculture. If you're talking about having a heightened skin in Kano, and from the last report from Louis Vuitton, they said Kano State is the second largest supplier of leather. So they come to Kano, you see the men that beat leather in Kano for the last 200 years, still beating leather, selling a 3 meter by 3 meter piece of leather for only $3. And Louis Vuitton takes it to France, makes about 6 pairs of shoes from that, and sell at about $5,000 on the shelf each. Now, who is the fool here? But even worse, when you go to Area Market in Aba, you will see clusters and clusters of people, women and men, children, manufacturing leather shoes, bags, and belts. When you ask them, where do you get your local resource from? They tell you they get it from Congo, some say Turkey. So they import these things, make them, and export them. What stops the governors of Kano State and that of Abia State to say, we're going to have a synergy?
All right. We'll leave it at that. It's a rolling discussion, rolling conversation. Ahmed Buhari, the presidential candidate of the Sustainable National Party on Let's Talk Politics. So until next time, let's do this again. I'm Awogo Obo. Bye-bye.